guys, welcome to the J Scott Outdoors podcast. Today's going to be a great show with Greg Koons of High Desert Outfitters. And Greg is one of my mentors in the sheep hunting world. He's helped me out ever since I started, and he's someone that I'm able to call at any time and bend his ear. And he's always helped me with all of the knowledge that I have for sheep hunting. He is responsible for most of it, and it's going to be a great episode to have him on here. He's going to specifically talk about the Cabeza Prieta 46A East and West and 46B East and West, as well as all the other units in the state. He's going to share his knowledge about every unit as we go through them. Before we get to that, I want to thank you guys, the listeners of this podcast, and I want to encourage you and ask you, if you would, if you're a regular listener of this podcast, would you please go on iTunes and leave a review and leave positive comments, and if you like the podcast, leave a 5-star rating. That helps our placement with iTunes, and I just really appreciate you guys doing that for me. I get a lot of you can go on there and there's a lot of great reviews of this podcast. Give a fair review. I'm good with that, and I appreciate all your support. As always, you can send me an email at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com if you want to talk, sheep units, if you want to talk drods, if you want to talk, optics, fishing, hunting, whatever. If you got questions, comments, send me an email, jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. You can also follow along my Instagram page at jscottoutdoors, my Facebook page, jscottoutdoors, my YouTube channel is jscottoutdoors, and Dar Colburn, my guiding partner, we have colburn&scottoutfitters.com. Also, my personal website, jscottoutdoors.com. Guys, really appreciate your support. Thank you for giving me good ratings on iTunes there. And also want to thank the sponsors of this podcast. I want to thank GoHunt.com insider Lorenzo Sartini and his crew. The Go Hunt Insider is a phenomenal resource tool and guide for any Western hunter researching all these different states. They have unbelievable accuracy in their draw odds and their strategy articles for which units to apply for, and in all the different Western states. You can use the J Scott promo code and you're going to get a $50 KUIU gift card when you sign up for Go Hunt Insider. Just go to gohunt.com/insider, click on the blue Join Now button, use the J Scott promo code when signing up, and you're going to get that $50 KUIU gift card. Speaking of KUIU, I want to thank Jason Hairston, KUIU Ultralight Hunting, for sponsoring this podcast. And I also wanted to tell you that the KUIU Mobile Showroom and the KUIU World Tour currently is in Portland, Oregon from June 1st through the 3rd, Seattle, Washington, June 8th through the 10th, Spokane, Washington, June 15th through the 17th, Missoula, Montana, June 22nd through the 24th, Boise, Idaho, Idaho Falls, Bozeman, Montana, Denver, Colorado, Colorado Springs, Omaha, Nebraska, Kansas City, Missouri, Oklahoma City, Dallas, Texas, Houston, Texas, Lubbock, Texas, and many more cities. You can go to my Instagram page and there's a full listing of the KUIU Mobile Showroom Tour, as well as you can go to KUIU.com. Thanks to Jason Hairston for coming up with this KUIU Mobile Showroom idea. You can try on any of the KUIU gear, the packs, the boots, the merino wool shirts, the synthetic shirts, the super down jackets. You can touch it, feel it, and get a sense of what size you are, and check out where they're going to be all through the summer and this fall. You can go and they're going to have clinics. They're going to have experts on site. But most of all, you get to try on, you can order, and you're going to get a discounted rate if you order at these mobile showrooms. Thanks to Jason Hairston and KUIU.com. Also want to thank Cheston Davis with phonescope.com. You get a 10% discount if you use the JScott16 promo code when ordering any product at phonescope.com. And I want to finish by thanking Cody Nelson at the Outdoorsman's and 1-800-291-8065. If you go online and order anything and use the JScott promo code, you're going to get a 10% discount as well as over the phone. And Cody is the optics authority. All his guys there at the Outdoorsman's, they do such a phenomenal job with their lightweight tripods and backpacks and spotting scopes and binoculars. They're just the authority on optics. So give them a ring. Guys, let's get right to this episode. If you have any questions at all, as far as putting in for Arizona, the deadline's coming up here soon for sheep and for deer. Feel free to shoot me an email or a message on Instagram, and I will try and get you the answer as quick as possible. Let's get right to it. Thank you. Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today I'm excited to have my friend Greg Koons on the line. Greg, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, Jay. And yourself?
Oh, doing great. For the listeners out there, Greg, I've known you for a long time now, and you've been one of those guys, especially in sheep hunting, that has been an ear for me to bend your ear since I, went on my first sheep hunt in 2009 with Glenn Hall and 44B North. You've always been a guy that I could call and bounce things off of, and I consider you a mentor of mine in the sheep hunting world, and you've always been an open door, and I've always appreciated that about you, and have always admired how much experience you have with sheep of all kinds, and you've had your own personal tags and shot big giant rams, and you've done a great job for your clients over the years. But I just want to tell you publicly that you are definitely one of the guys that has always been, kind of open armed, open door to me, and I value that very much.
Well, thank you. I got no secrets to hide from anybody. If they, a lot of these guys don't want to help new guides coming in to learn stuff, thinking that they're going to be taking clients from them or whatever. But I've always tried to help you and give you the best information that I can, and I think you've done extremely well with it, and have taken things to the next level, and do extremely well for your clients.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Before we get into all the sheep stuff, Greg, you're a general contractor in Arizona, and I want to ask you a few questions about your business. You do a lot of commercial work, you do a lot of residential work. Can you shed some light on your general contracting business?
Yeah, we do mainly do residential remodels and additions, a few custom homes, but lately we've gotten more into the commercial side, commercial TIs. We do a fair amount of cellular work through another friend of mine, contractor, High Desert Communications. I usually do the buildings to house the equipment underneath the towers for them all across the state. I've been doing that with them since '97. But my bread and butter and what really keeps me going is the residential remodels. And I've been a licensed contractor since '97. Probably do 75% residential work versus 25% commercial. But it's been good. Can't complain.
And I know that in your travels with your contracting business, you're anywhere from, Prescott to Payson to, Sholo to Phoenix to, all over the Metro Phoenix area, and you're doing, cell towers here and cell towers there, and I know you've done commercial buildings and projects in all over Arizona. With the bread and butter being residential remodel, like in the past, say, 10 years, or let's break it down and maybe say the last 5 years, have you seen maybe since the market really took a crash in, say, '08, '09, Did you see the residential remodel business really, really pick up, say, in the last 5 years?
Oh, it has just gone off the charts. Uh, it's it's been unbelievable for us, and we stayed busy even through the downturns. We were slower than we had been, but we made it through, and things have really picked up the last 5 years, and it's hard to keep up right now. There's there's everybody's busy. It's hard to find good help. It's hard to find subcontractors. Uh, it's just booming right now. So if you're not busy now, you're never going to be.
Find a new profession. Um,
Exactly.
Greg, I would ask you, with 75% of your business being these residential remodels, give me an example. I mean, are we talking everything from room additions to, just new kitchens and what have you? Can you elaborate a little bit on, everyday life for you in the construction business?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of additions. Uh, adding a bedroom, adding an office, enclosing a carport, uh, that sort of thing. But then we also do a lot of kitchens, bathroom remodels, uh, whole house remodels. So, where we'll just take and the people will move out and we'll go in and just remodel the whole house, tear out walls, put new walls in, all new flooring throughout, paint complete, uh, the kitchen, the baths, everything. So, we've run the gauntlet on doing everything, and I'm on the job every day working with my tools, and that's why I got into construction. I really enjoy that part of it. I dislike the paperwork end of it, so I usually drag my feet a little bit on that. But for the most part, it's been a good profession. I really enjoy being able, at the end of the day, to stand back and look at your project and say, we got a lot done today, and it looks really nice. So it's been good for us.
How much of your business, I mean, I know you're a real people person, and you're one of those guys that, you take pride in your work, but how much of your business is, being able to really communicate with your customer and, understand exactly what they're looking for? And sometimes I know with people it's probably harder than others, but how much does communication play in being having a successful business like you do?
Oh, I think communication is extremely important. Uh, and one thing that has worked very well for me is, I sell the job. So when we talk with the customer and they tell me we want to do this, we want to do that, I'm on the job every day. So there's nothing lost between a salesman that sells the job to conveying to the employees or subcontractors, this is what they want to do, and then you never see that salesman again. I'm on the job. I've had the conversations with them. I know what was said, what I said I would do, and always try to go 110% and do over and above even what I say I'm going to do. We work really hard and take a lot of pride in our work. To do it right the first time. There's no money in coming back and fixing something, so let's do it right the first time and be done.
Yeah, and that's one thing I know you've done a lot of work for DAR, and you've done work for my dad. He does a lot of property management. You've done stuff for him, and your reputation is great. And one thing that you just said there that kind of I thought there was a parallel in the outfitting business, because your outfitting business, you also quote unquote sell the hunts, book the hunts, talk to the hunters, but then you're also there on the hunt. I feel like in this day and age, with all of the advances in technology and all the different things that we have going for us that are a positive, I think sometimes there's a little bit of that, from the person that's booked the hunt, sold the hunt, going on the hunt. I feel like today, with all the advancements in technology, we've kind of lost some of that in some of the booking agencies and some of the different things. And can you speak with that, being a long time guide, over 30 years or more? that communication factor and how important it is from the initial call when someone draws a sheep tag, or any of the other hunts that you do, from that point when you talk to them to all the way through the hunt, executing the hunt and what have you, how important that is to you and your business.
Yeah, that's huge. I'd say the biggest thing is to be honest with your clients. Tell them exactly what the unit can produce that they've drawn. Not all units produce 180-inch rams. Everybody wants to kill a 180-inch ram, but they're not available in every unit. So just be honest with your client and telling them what the unit typically produces. We're going to hunt hard and look for a better ram, but this is what the average is, or what the unit typically produces, the history of the unit. And, if we do better than that, then we did very well. But don't be disappointed if we harvest a so-called average ram for the unit, which may be a 160 ram, might be a 165 ram, or a 170 ram. But we'll always look and hunt hard and scout hard for a better ram, but giant rams aren't available in every unit.
I think that's a very, very good point. I think a lot of times people have expectations that are out of whack, and they've, maybe seen a few too many, headlines, and don't realize how difficult it can be to find those great rams. I want to
Yep.
dive into, you are known for Bighorn sheep. I call you Mr. Cabeza Prieta. Today we're going to specifically talk about units 46A and 46B, both at the east and the west sides of each of those units. But you have extensive knowledge pretty much on a lot of units in the state of Arizona. I was just wondering if you could kind of give a little bit of a background on the initial love that you took on for sheep, and kind of how that all started, and then your guiding and what have you, and how old you were, and kind of from the beginnings, to give kind of an understanding to not only to me but to the people listening of your extensive background in sheep hunting, not only in Arizona, but other places as well, where you've gone and shot your own personal rams.
Yeah. Well, my father was very instrumental in getting me interested in the sheep. He was a charter member of the Arizona Desert Bighorn Sheep Society, and he killed his personal ram in the Plomosas in '62. Helped several of his friends kill rams there in the early '60s, and just really held the sheep up on a pedestal compared to the other animals. That was a very prestigious opportunity to be able to hunt those animals in their natural mountains there. And I drew my personal tag in 1977 when I was 18 years old, and killed a ram in the Plomosas. That's a 159 ram. It's not a great big ram. Knowing now, I wouldn't have shot that ram. But we didn't have the optics, the knowledge. Tripods were just coming into being used. Optics, we hunted a lot different back then. And, I'm happy with my ram, but it's not a ram that I would harvest today if I had a tag for myself. So I didn't really mess around with sheep then after I killed my ram till about 1982. I found a pickup head while I was varmint calling in southern Arizona that is just over 200 inches. It's the number 2 desert sheep in the world. And all the persona that came with that and notoriety that came with that really got me interested back in spending some time with the sheep. And I ended up getting divorced in 1985, so I didn't have anything holding me to not be able to go spend the month of December and hunt sheep. So I got hooked up with a guy that is very well known in the Arizona sheep stuff, Mike Mell, and said, Mike, I just want to learn how to hunt sheep better. I'll do whatever you need me to do. Don't pay me. I'll go for free. I'll buy my own fuel. Just feed me. Tell me what you want me to do. Go to town, get groceries. Go look at this stuff, whatever. I'll do whatever you need done. I just want to learn. And I've always been like a sponge when I'm around people that I think I can learn something from. I just kind of stand back and listen and absorb everything that they're saying, and just try to file that all away and pick out pieces of that I can use. And it's worked very well. And Mike, I think, is one of the best sheep hunters in the state of Arizona. Just a super, super good sheep hunter. Doesn't do a whole lot now, but can't say enough about Mike. But I did that with him about 4 or 5 years, and then started High Desert Outfitters, and have done fairly well. I got referred from some taxidermists and stuff that, and the Cabeza is where I kind of started down there. My first guided hunt was in 46B, and I think then the season was only 15 days, and I think we killed a ram on the 13th day. We struggled a little bit, but the sheep population wasn't what it is now back then. So there was fewer sheep, although we did have access. There was no wilderness. We could drive wherever we wanted, utilize any of the roads. So that was a big plus back then. But and then it's just kind of grown, and I've guided probably in 75% of the units that have sheep in them in Arizona. I've killed been responsible for 69 rams in the state. We've killed some big rams, and we've killed some not so big rams, but they're all trophies in my opinion, and always try to kill older, mature ram. We've killed some rams that we didn't think would make it through the next summer, and then we've taken some younger rams that were great big too, but sheep are just kind of a special species to me, and I really, really enjoy hunting them, and kind of like my dad, hold them up on a pedestal higher than the other animals in the state. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but they sure have a special place in my heart, and it's been a fantastic experience for me.
Yeah, and I think, back in '09 when Glenn Hall drew his tag, I think you were the first person that I called, and like I had said earlier, and the listeners can tell just by hearing it in your voice, the passion you have for it, was infectious to me. And I was going down and scouting, and I was calling you, telling you, reporting in what I had been seeing, and there was no part of it that was like you trying to not help me in any way. You were telling me everything you knew about field judging. I was like a little nuisance, just going, well, what about this, what about that, what about and trying to soak up all that I could. And so it's fun to hear you talk about the guys that you soaked it up from, and then it's also great to see you giving that same bit back to me and lots of other people I know that you've helped over the years. Before we dive totally into the Arizona stuff, I know years ago you drew a New Mexico, or maybe you won the hunt. Maybe you can tell me about that. I forget the whole story, but you killed a giant ram over in New Mexico, and I want to say at the time it was the state record or tied the state record.
Correct. Yeah.
Tell me how that went down, and I remember it being a pretty neat story.
Yeah, we had I had harvested 3 of the Grand Slam. My desert, which I killed in '77, my stone I killed in British Columbia in 2001, and then my Doll I killed in 2002 in Alaska. So I needed a Rocky to complete my my Grand Slam, and being just a regular working guy, didn't see how I could afford to do that. I'd been going to at that time was the Wild Sheep Foundation conventions, and just knew that I wanted to try to complete my slam. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. Arizona was just getting started with their Rockies, so I figured I'd just wait till I drew a tag here, which I still haven't drawn a tag. But my wife bought me some raffle tickets for the New Mexico FNAS raffle, and always previously, the auction hunter that purchased the tag at auction had his choice of either Rockies or deserts. And then the raffle hunter had to hunt the other one. You both couldn't hunt the same species. And in 2003, they had changed that. And my wife bought me $200 worth of raffle tickets and put them in a Father's Day card and gave that to me on Father's Day, which is middle of June.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, that was kind of a waste of $200, but she said, I wish I could afford to buy you a Rocky hunt, but I can't. This is the best I can do. So good luck. And so I'd kind of put it on the back burner, wasn't even thinking about it, and I'd gone to work. And my wife got home before I did, and she calls me. I mean, I remember the job I was working on over in Scottsdale, everything. And she says, I don't know if this is anything, but somebody left a message on the recorder from New Mexico. You're supposed to call him, Kent Sauer, it was the guy's name. I want you to call him, and you better call me right back after you talk to him. So I'm thinking, why the hell's Kent calling me? So I call Kent, and I'm talking to him, and he's like, hey, I was down at the raffle drawing today, and I was talking to Eric Rominger, who's one of the biologists for New Mexico, and he said your name came up, and he told me you have that big pickup head from Arizona that's over 200 inches. And he just goes on and on and on about this pickup head. And I'm like, you didn't call me to talk about this pickup head, that I'd found. So he says, well, like I said, I was down at the raffle today, and your name was drawn. And I'm like, oh my God!
Like, why don't you start with that?
Exactly. But I mean, like I said, he went 10, 15 minutes talking about my pickup head and asking me questions and this and that, and I was just floored when he told me that I had drawn that tag. So I'm thinking, okay, so now it's the end of June, and season starts the 1st of September. I've never stepped foot over there in the unit. Obviously, I wanted to hunt Rockies. The auction hunter had purchased the tag at auction off of a photograph that Eric Rominger had taken on the winter range of a ram at Wheeler Peak that they thought was 190 plus. And so there wasn't even an option for me. I was going to hunt Wheeler Peak. That's what I wanted to hunt, because that's where they were killing the biggest Rockies in the state of New Mexico at that time. So mid-July, I made a scouting trip over there. Jason Sherwood and I made a trip over, spent 3 days, and rented a car, just kind of drove around, looked at the country. In Taos Ski Valley, there's a guy that does horse trips up to the top of Wheeler Peak. So we got one of those deals and jumped on a horse and rode to the top of Wheeler, saw a fair number of sheep. Next day, we hiked into a place called, I can't think of the name of the lake now. But anyway, right out of the ski valley there, walked up there, saw some more rams. And then I made another trip back about 2 weeks later with my cousin and hired a guy out of Taos to pack us into a mountain called Vallecitos Mountain, which all the big rams, the book rams, had all been killed on or around this mountain. And the only access was this horse trail across some private property to get access there. So we packed in there for 3 days, and I found the ram that I wanted to kill, videoed him, got quite a bit of video from him, and told the landowner whose private property we had to cross that I'll be back on August 27th. There'll be 3 guys with me. Your neighbor's packing me in. And told him everything else, and he says, well, it's going to be $500 to cross my property. So I said, okay, whatever it is, that's where I need to go. So on the night of August 25th, I got home from work, which is my daughter's birthday. We had a party scheduled for her, and there's a message on the recorder. This is Bolivar Quintana, that I'm the landowner over here in New Mexico. I need you to call me as soon as possible. So I call him, and he says, the auction hunter, well, that year they had changed the rule to where you could both hunt the same species of sheep. So we were both hunting the Rocky Mountain species and both hunting Wheeler Peak unit. So Bolivar tells me that the auction hunter has paid for exclusive access rights that I cannot cross his property. So we proceeded to have a pretty lengthy and heated discussion. And the outcome was that I told him when I was there scouting, and I talked to him, I said, you carry a notepad in your shirt pocket, and you wrote down the date that I was coming back, who was coming with me and their names, and that you were going to charge me $500 to cross your property. And he says, well, I'm a man of my word, and if I told you can cross for $500, then you can cross for $500. I said, okay, you need to call Mick Chappell, who was guiding the auction hunter, and let him know that, and then you call me back. So he calls me back about 10 minutes later and proceeds to tell me, you're not crossing my property.
Oh, boy.
So they offered him more money, and he decided to go that route and not let me cross. Well, I'm pretty determined, and I researched helicopters, I researched access agreements through the Forest Service with the game department, anybody having any way to get across that property, and nobody did. So the guy that I had ridden the horses with out of Taos Ski Valley, he is also an outfitter out of there and had watched those sheep grow since they'd planted them there and really had an interest in them and didn't have much of an interest in Mick Chappell. So he says, I'll help you however I can, whatever we can do. And we were able to get some access across some property that not everybody can do. And it didn't get me where I needed to be at that time, but I could sit there, and 2 miles away, I could look at that ram on that mountain, and I watched him for 3 days over there. And then we put on our backpacks and packed in there. And we ended up getting in there, and I was late getting there that morning after daylight. And the rams were in the 500 to 600 yard range, and I don't typically shoot that far. So we just started, it was a big open bowl rock slide, just started going rock to rock when the rams had their heads down feeding. And one ram had picked his head up and was looking around, and we stopped and we're waiting for him to go back to feeding. And I said, okay, he went back to feeding, let's go. And Chuck, my partner, says, the other hunter's here. And I said, what? And he said, the other hunter just came over the top. They're on the skyline. The gun is on the ground. They're just looking through their binoculars. So I said, well, we need to kill a sheep then. And we were about 350 yards, which I felt comfortable with. And got into my sling, got rested on a boulder there, and waited for the ram to come clear and shot him. And all those rams, the 3 rams grouped up and made a little 30, 40 yard run and stopped with the big ram in the middle. And then the top ram took a couple steps up, the bottom ram took a couple steps forward, which left me a perfect shot. And I shot again, and the ram went down and started rolling down the mountain. And then the obscenities started from the top of the mountain that I just killed their ram. And, Chuck and I, we were just ecstatic, high-fiving, and just couldn't believe our good luck there. And for 15 minutes, those guys just proceeded to have nothing good to say about us. But it was pretty exciting. It took me 2 days to pack that ram off the mountain. And at the time, it was the state record when I killed it. Mick Chappell's wife had killed the state record the year prior that was right at 195. And my ram ended up being 195 and a quarter official. And I'd also heard that there was a $20,000 bonus to Mick if they killed a ram over 190 inches. And they ended up shooting a ram that was 178. Older ram, 11-year-old ram, beautiful ram, but Mick didn't get his bonus, and I broke his wife's state record, so I didn't get a Christmas card from him that
Yeah, you probably still don't.
year.
Well,
Yeah.
that's an incredible story. Um, I remember hearing it pretty close to when it happened, and it's exactly the same story I heard back then, and it's one of my favorite stories, and it just shows, determination and hard work pays off, and I've seen that ram. It's a beautiful ram, and just happy that you got it, and I wanted you to share that story. It's always one of my favorites. Um, I want to talk specifically about 46A and 46B. You mentioned that you had shot your ram in the Plomosas, which is 44B North, and that one of the first guided hunts you did was in the Cabeza Prieta. Um, let's start out by telling the listeners, obviously now 46 is, 46B, 46A. They've now split the units into East and West. You started hunting those units when it was just Unit 46A and just Unit 46B. Um, Explain a little bit about the background of the Cabeza Prieta. Do they consider just 46B East and West the Cabeza Prieta, or do they also consider 46A East and West the Cabeza Prieta? And just talk a little bit in general about historical and some of the distinguishing factors between those units.
Well, both 46A and 46B are the Cabeza Prieta Wildlife Refuge. It's one of the largest refuges in the United States. It was originally designed for the desert bighorn sheep and the Sonoran pronghorn antelope. And it was set up by the Boy Scouts, were the ones that originally pushed to get that established. And I'm going to say it was back in the 30s when that was established. In the 50s, they did quite extensive amount of water developments in there to help promote the sheep and give them more water and try to help that herd grow a little bit. Those are very arid mountains. They receive 4 or 5 inches of rain annually. There's really not much there for them to feed on other than rocks, and that's probably one of the limiting factors on age, is because everything they eat has so much dirt and dust on it, it wears their teeth out. So you typically don't see a super old ram, 13, 14 years old, because they don't live that long there, because their teeth fail them. But it was in, I think, the early 90s, was developed or designated as wilderness. There was a fair number of roads and a pretty good road structure for access throughout both sides of the refuge. A little bit of mining activity had taken place, and plus roads into those waters. So it was easy to get around in the late 80s, early 90s. Once it went to wilderness, the only road that they left accessible is the Camino del Diablo, which crosses the southern portion of 46B going east to Tule Well, and that's maybe 4 miles north of the Mexican border, and continues east to Papago Well, which is in 46A at the north end of the Agua Dulces, and then kind of loops around and goes into the Organ Pipe National Monument, and then back out to Highway 85 just south of Ajo. And then there was a road that went from Tule Well north to Interstate 8, which they call the Papago Road. It goes to the west side of the Sierra Pintas in 46B north, like I said, all the way up to Interstate 8. So those are the only 2 roads, I guess, that you could drive in the unit, even currently even. None of the roads go to a mountain. So at the north end of the Pintas, that's probably the closest area that you get into. The road gets to a mountain, and you can glass from the road, so it's a half mile probably at the closest point. and there's a couple points on the Camino that get real close to mountains also. But for the most part, it's 4 or 5 mile walk across the desert floor just to get to the base of the mountain. So the access in the west side, 46B West, is really difficult. 46A, you have the Camino that crosses the lower end, which would be the north side of the Agua Dulces, south side of the Growler Mountains. And then there's also a road that comes from the north side of Ajo, right below Ajo, or not Ajo, Childs Mountain, which has some military, there's a big round ball up there that has a lot of military stuff on it. And you can access to the top of that and continue west towards the Growler Mountains and go through to Growler, or not Growler Pass, Charlie Bell Pass. And then there's also a road that is open only to the sheep hunters that goes south on the east side of the Growlers, down to what they call Lower Well, and on around out through Chico Shuni and back out, ties into that Camino north of the Organ Pipe National Monument. So the road structure that you're allowed to drive is extremely limited, and they're all unimproved roads, all high clearance 4-wheel drive necessary. It's really tough to access some of that country.
Okay, Greg, just to clarify a few things, you've got 46A East and 46A West, and then you've got 46B East and 46B West. The mountain range themselves that are in 46A are the Growlers
and Childs Mountain.
And is that in west or east?
That's in east.
Okay, so the Growlers and Childs Mountain.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And then the mountain range in 46A West is called what?
The Agua Dulces, which is right on the Mexican border. It's in between the Mexican border and the Camino del Diablo. And then way to the north is the Granite Mountains. And they come off of the Barry Goldwater Gunnery Range. About half of them are on the Cabeza Prieta, but there is no road access at all. The closest access is probably at Charlie Bell Pass, and it's 12 to 14 miles across the desert floor to the south end of the Growler, or Granites.
Okay.
You can also come from the Camino del Diablo at the north end of the Agua Dulces and come north, and it's 14 to 15 miles to the south end of the Granites. So it's an extremely difficult mountain range to access. There's only one permanent water there, and I don't think it is holding water at this time. So as far as anybody knows, there's no permanent water on the Granites, but there are sheep there that live there year-round.
Okay. And then 46B East and 46B West, what are the mountains in those units?
46B East is mainly, there's actually 3 ranges in there. The Sierra Pintas, which is the primary range, runs north and south, from the north end of the Cabeza to the south end of the Cabeza. The further south you go on the Papago Road, the further it gets from the Pintas. The Pintas kind of run northwest, southeast, and the Papago Road runs basically north and south. So the further south you go, the mountains are going away from you. And then the south end of the Mohawks run into the Cabeza. There's 2 or 3 miles of the Mohawks there that you can also hunt. And then the Bryan Mountains, which is just a little range of hills. It's hard to call them mountains. No road access whatsoever, extremely difficult to get to, and I don't know of any rams being killed in the Bryans. But then 46B West has the Cabeza Prieta mountain range, and then it also has the Tule Mountains, which are also right on the Mexican border, between the Camino del Diablo and the Mexican border. And they continue to run on into Mexico, so we just have the northern tip of them into Arizona or into the Cabeza. And that also forms the Penacati Range down in Mexico.
Okay, and the Camino de Diablo, I mean, that's the road of the devil, right? In Spanish.
Correct.
And I don't think they
Correct.
call, I don't think they call, I think they specifically call it that for a reason, right?
Yes. Yes. That's the conquistadors come across there. There are still marked grave sites all along that. It's a very, very well-known access point that used to go across the southern portion of Arizona there.
Okay. And it's known 46A and 46B is known for quite a bit of illegal alien traffic, drug running, a lot of stuff going on right there. Can you speak to that with your experience?
Well, it's definitely going on in there. It's something that you need to be very aware of, and be aware of your surroundings, what's going on, and just most of them are just afraid of you as you are of them. They don't want the confrontation, so they're trying to stay out of your way also. So you just need to be aware of it and be conscious and pay attention to your surroundings.
Yeah, I think that's good advice.
Funny.
There's a big border patrol presence in both units, correct?
Very much so. Very much so, yes.
Okay. One thing about it, there have been some very big rams harvested on the Cabeza Prieta, both in 46A and 46 and A and 46B. What can you tell me about some of those historical rams? I know you have ties to some of them.
Well, the 46A has probably produced 8 or 10 rams over 180 inches. Marvin James, 1997, killed the biggest ram killed out of 46A. It was 187 inches, giant ram, and saw a bigger ram the day before. But how do you pass up a 187-inch ram to go look for a 189-inch ram? So he did the right thing in shooting the ram that he did. But the quality has kind of dropped a little bit. It seems to be coming back. They're killing some pretty nice rams in the growlers in the low to mid 70s. Haven't broken 80 for quite a few years, but it will happen again. And then before they split the unit, when it was just 46A, 95% of the people concentrated in the growlers because that was the easiest range to get to. With it being split last year with 2 hunters in 46A West, they both killed giant rams. A ram in Agua Dulces that was 176, and that gentleman saw a better ram than that. The guy that hunted the granites with an outfitter, they killed a ram right about 170 and saw other rams of that same caliber. So both of those units have the potential to kill a 170 plus ram. Access is definitely an issue. Now, over on 46B, the largest ram ever killed in the unit was Gary Ferrier in late 70s, I believe, 185-inch ram. That the best ram killed there in recent years. We took a ram in '98 that was 178 inches that we had guided for, but that's the biggest ram killed there since Ferrier's ram. They a couple years ago, Matt Cutlip killed a big ram in 46B West that high to mid 170s. Great ram. And last year, the Pintas, nobody had hunted the Pintas because the Cabeza Prieta Mountains were easier to get to. So now that they're forcing someone to hunt that, 4 hunters to hunt that, last year they killed a low 70s ram over there, which is outstanding. I think that's the exception for that unit. I think more realistic would be low to mid 160s for 46B East. But still a wonderful opportunity there to harvest some beautiful animals.
Talking about 46B East and West, when you talk about those two units, when it was just 46B, where was most of the hunter concentration compared with, you talk about them splitting it now and it forces guys to hunt other ranges. Where I believe there were 8 tags, 6 to 8 tags for quite a while in 46B. Where were most of those rams harvested?
Yeah, there were 7 tags was the most that's been there, and majority of those rams were killed in the Cabeza Prieta Mountains. So when you take 7 rams for 5, 6, 7 years, that's a lot of sheep to be taken out of there. It really hurts your older age class rams. So by them splitting that, I think that's really going to help 46B West, because now they're only taking 4 rams out of there. They're also having 4 hunters hunt the Sierra Pintas and the Mohawks and the Bryans. So, it's split up the pressure quite a bit. I think the further we go with that being split, the better rams we're going to see in 46B West. I think that's just really going to help the age class of rams, let some rams get some age on them, and I think it's really going to be a plus for us.
The characteristics of those sheep in those units, they've got a real orange-colored horn. What makes that horn that color?
That's caused by the elephant bush, and it's only found in the lower deserts. It's pretty much exclusively south of Interstate 8. They get underneath it and they eat that elephant bush, and those rams also get in there and rake their tree like an elk would or whatever, to where that sap, it breaks those branches off and that sap gets on those horns, and it's a very pungent odor, and it stains everything red. Even when you walk through it and you get the sap on your pants, it's like a red stripe from the sap in there. So it's kind of unique just to pretty much that region and into Mexico, as those rams having that. So it's pretty unique.
I'm looking at the checkout sheet last year from the Arizona Game and Fish Department, and we'll just start with 46A East. And one thing that I do want to point out is, last year, like you said, they shot 2 rams, a 173 and a 171. I'm just talking rough numbers, an 8 and a 9-year-old ram. The 173 ram was a 38 and 6/8, 35 and 7, with 15 and 3 and 15 and 4 on his bases, and the 171-inch ram was 35 and 5/8 and 36 with 15 and 2/8 inch bases. Those are very, very nice rams. Are those kind of are they a little abnormal for, that unit?
I wouldn't.
It seems like
I don't
that's
think
pretty
so.
good numbers for normal.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well can be expected. If a guy hunts hard, puts in some effort, does some scouting, not afraid to walk, then that's a definite possibility to kill, a 170, low 170 type ram out of there.
Okay.
And with the chance of maybe doing better.
And I'm looking at my sheet here where I broke down the odds. There's 2 tags in 46A East, and it's basically a 1 in 45 and a half. So 1 in 45 and a half shot at drawing there. Now, with it being 2 tags, all of these units, 46A East, West, 46B East, 46B West, they are all open to non-residents.
Correct.
But in your experience, these are definitely, compared to a lot of units in Arizona, these specific units are in your mind, it's very important that you consider hiring an outfitter. Would you agree?
Definitely. Access is a huge issue. Uh, most of these units, of the 4 units, they don't have a road that goes to the mountain. So you have a big walk across the desert floor every day, and that's fine for a week or so, but then you start to wear yourself down when you're traveling, you know, 6 to 8 miles a day just to get to the mountain and back out without even hunting. It really takes its toll on you. So you either need to backpack and stay in there, which packing water becomes a major issue. That's your biggest weight you're going to incur. You can't carry enough water with you to, even if you would have to do some, when you're scouting or pre-season work, you would have to be packing water and stashing water so that you have points that you can go and know that you have water there. But
and even with that, you have to kind of worry that the illegals don't find your stashes too.
Hasn't been found. Exactly. Correct.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then 46A West, I'm looking at the Rams. They shot a 176, and it looks like a 168 type Ram. And they were 36 and 37 with 15 and 4 in bases on the 1, and then 35 and 2 and 34 and an 8 with 14 and 5/8 inch bases. That's in 46A West, so that is in the Agua Dulces and the Granites, correct?
Correct. Yes.
And go ahead.
Go ahead.
Of the 2 units, 46A West and East, you think that 46A West is a little bit better than 46A East as far as quality?
No, I would think East would be better.
Okay.
Typically, historically, the Agua Dulces and the Granites, which there's only been a handful of rams killed out of the Granites, just because of the access issues. But the Agua Dulces, they typically produced a much smaller ram. I'm going to say low to mid 150s type of sheep. There's only 2 rams in the book that I know of from the Agua Dulces that have scored over 168. We killed a ram there I did with Mike Mell, that was 172 back in late 80s, and then in the mid 90s, Carl Plaster from Nutrioso had killed a ram that was right at 168. But those are the only 2 rams that I have known prior to this past year that made book from the Agua Dulces. Like I said, they typically had a real tight curled ram there. So relatively short horn, but good mass.
Okay. And then as we move over to 46B East and 46B West, is there just a lot more country to hunt in those units, or is there just a lot more sheep? Meaning you go from 2 tags in 46A East and 2 tags in 46A West, and then you double that and you go to 4 tags in B East and B West. More sheep or more country, or what's the reason for double the amount of tags?
Definitely more sheep. The east side of 46B East, you have the 3 mountain ranges, so it lets you. The Mohawks have a pretty good population of sheep, and even though you only have a small portion of it, typically in December, there's some fair number of sheep at that south end. So that's always a good spot. The Pintas have resident sheep. That mountain range is pretty close to 30 miles long, and it's basically just a spine. There's a good population of sheep. It's just hard to hunt. So I'm thinking they're wanting people to spend some time and get into that country that normally typically doesn't get hunted. There's no access vehicular-wise to the east side of the Sierra Pintas. all the access is off the west side, and then you would have to walk through passes to get through, which
Eliminates a lot of people.
exactly correct. Now, B West has probably the highest population of all of those four units of sheep. A bigger mountain range, um, actually two mountains with the Tules. There hasn't been a whole lot of sheep killed in the Tules. Those sheep, it's a matter of finding them on the U.S. side versus the Mexico side during the season. You can go scout and see quite a few sheep in the Tules, but then come season, they've all moved because their food source or whatever has moved or changed, and now those sheep are not in the U.S. They're on the Mexico side. So the majority of the people hunt the Cabeza Prietas, and there's a good population of sheep there and some good older age class rams. It's just hard to access. Like I said, there's no road structure that you can get into that you can drive to let you access the interior of that mountain.
Okay, a question that's popped up in my mind is in 46A and in 46B, is a Cabeza Prieta pass or permit required by all hunters? I mean, does everybody have to check in order to hunt there?
Everybody has to get a special use permit, and it can include your helpers that are helping you. As a guide, I have to have a special use permit. The hunter has to have a special use permit, and then they would also have their helpers named on their use permits. But there is only certain places you can camp on the refuge. There's only certain places you can camp with livestock on the refuge. Also, if you take livestock, you have to haul your own water. You cannot water your animals at any drinker designated for wildlife. You're not supposed to. So you either need to carry all your water with you for your livestock, which is very difficult, or you need to carry it on your person or have stashed water to be able to hunt that stuff. And it's just so far to get in there that it detours a lot of people, and then getting all your stuff back out with your ram. So a lot of people don't venture to the interior of that stuff.
Yeah, it makes sense. I just wanted to go over a few numbers here. I think I mentioned in 46A East, but I don't think I talked about 46A West. Actually is a 1 in 32. There's 2 tags, 64 applicants last year. It's a 1 in 32. 46B East is a 1 in 41. There's 4 tags. And 46B West is a 1 in 83. There's 4 tags. I believe there was 333 first choice applicants last year. As far as numbers of sheep, it sounds like you would rank 46B West as 1, 46B East as 2, and then how would the east or west side of 46A, which one would you think has more sheep?
I would say A East, the growlers would have the next number, and then last would be the Agua Dulces and granites in 46A West.
Okay. And then the horn configuration of a lot of those Cabeza Prieta rams, do they have any distinguishing, characteristic that you see a lot of rams down there have?
They're typically the typical Mexicana, relatively tight curled rams, don't drop real low, but a lot of the rams, the older age class rams, would come up and tip out up over the bridge of the nose. So it's kind of a classic looking desert bighorn. There are a few rams that are low dropped and wide down there, but very few. Very few. The typical deal's tight and up over the bridge of the nose and carrying a fair amount of mass. So they're really neat looking sheep.
And the bases, say on an 8-plus-year-old ram, normally what kind of bases are you going to have there?
I would like to, typically 15 inches is about an average base. From 14.6 to 15.2, something like that, 15 and a quarter. But I usually use 15 inches as a guideline when I'm judging sheep. As far, if it's an older age class ram, he's more than likely going to have 15-inch plus bases. So, but it's hard to give him 15 and a half, unless he just really looks big. But majority of the sheep are in that 15-inch range.
Greg, let's talk a little field judging here since I've got you on the line. And what do you think is some of the biggest mistakes people make when judging rams, as far as, just general mistakes or things that people really need to consider and think about when field judging sheep?
Well, I think with sheep hunting you can only harvest one desert sheep in your lifetime in Arizona. So nobody has any experience, or very few people have experience in judging or handling and actually knowing what that ram scores. It's easy to say that ram scores 170 inches when he's over there on the mountain, but until you go and kill that ram and physically measure him, he could be 155 or it could be 185. You don't know. It just comes with experience. So if you get a tag and you don't have a lot of experience, look at every sheep you possibly can that's mounted at a taxidermist where you can physically put a tape measure on them and find out what they score. They are relatively difficult to judge. They're not as hard as an antelope, which I think are the most difficult, but it just comes with experience. Handling a lot of sheep and knowing what they score. Being able to physically measure them is huge. A lot of people, all sheep look big from the back when they're walking away. I think you need to get all different looks. You need to look from the front. You need to look from the side. You need to look from the back. You have to get all views to be able to get a solid basis to judge how big that sheep is and how well he's carrying his mass.
I think you mentioned something there that I think is super important too, is when you draw, we've talked about it before on this podcast, when you draw a bighorn sheep tag, and you need to really study the unit that you're hunting and specifically try and get as many base measurements and length measurements as you can, and all of the measurements, so that you can, try and match up a picture with all of the scores. But how important is knowing your base measurement so you have a, quote unquote baseline to start with, because mass is, over 60% of your score is mass. How important is it to nail your bases? And if you miss, how devastating can that be?
Well, the base is where it all starts. Everything is based off of that coming around. So if you're starting with a 13.5-inch base, even though you carry your mass, you didn't start with very big bases. You're starting 2 inches behind the curve already from a 15-inch base, or 1.5 inches off, and that's going to continue all the way around on all your quarter measurements. Bases are huge as far as being able to judge them accurately and to get an accurate score on your sheep.
What do you look for from a maturity aspect of body? What do you look for when you're looking at sheep? What determines if it's an older age, say 8-year-old or older mature ram, when you're looking strictly at body?
And that's another thing. You need to look at a lot of sheep, but the older rams get real pot-bellied. They get sway-backed. Their butt gets kind of dished in. The white butt patch gets dingy in color. It's not bright, vibrant white. It gets a little yellowish or brownish there. Those older rams are like you or me, especially me. We get pot-bellied. Our joints start to hurt. We don't want to be climbing up there on the top of the mountain real rough stuff. A lot of those older age class rams are on the bottom portion of the mountain. They spend a lot of time on the desert floor. Um, so you need to get a little bit of elevation to where you can see that bottom quarter of the mountain. Because when you're on the desert floor looking at that stuff, your vegetation, your palo verdes, ocotillas and stuff are blocking that bottom portion of the mountain, and you miss a lot of sheep. The vegetation and feed is so poor down there that they have to come out on the desert floor in those washes to get better feed, and then they go back up the mountain to bed. But everybody wants to look up. You think sheep, and they're in the rugged, rocky, nastiest stuff, and that's where a lot of the ewes and stuff live for protection for their lambs. But those older age class rams, they only go there for the rut. And once the rut's over, they don't want to be up in that stuff. It's hard for them to get around. So they want to be on that lower portion majority of the time, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's really good stuff there. Jumping back to the Cabeza Prieta, when the hunt is December 1st through the 31st, is it normal to see some headbutting and see some rams kind of with ewes and kind of nosing around with ewes, or typically during those hunts are the rams by themselves or with other rams? What is on a normal, normally what are you seeing throughout that month of December?
And I've seen both. I've seen rams with ewes, and I've seen ram bands, rams by themselves. It runs the gauntlet of all of that. Majority of the time, it's 2 or 3 rams together of similar age class and similar horn size, running together. And then, the ewes and lambs will majority of the time be together in little groups, 5 or 6, and up in the higher, more rugged country where they have a little more protection from the predators. But, if there's a ewe that comes into estrus late, didn't get bred, those rams, they just stack up there. We had in 46B in 2013, B West, in 2013, we had a group of 9 rams that were with a estrus ewe, and they were just head-butting to beat heck. I mean, all day those rams were just butting heads, kicking each other, posturing, chasing that ewe up and down the mountain all over. It was non-stop. They could be together, they could be with the ewes, they could be by themselves. There's no rhyme or reason to it.
Okay. Greg, I want to take a little break from talking about the Cabeza Prieta here, and I want to just kind of shotgun through a lot of units in the state of Arizona and get just kind of some initial thoughts that come to your head. Mountain ranges, any experiences you've had, whether the units, going up, going down, things you've heard, and if we get to a unit and you just, have a skip it, just say skip it. But I think talking to a person like you that's hunted in most of these units, mention whether, something's, super rugged or pretty easy to hunt or quite a few sheep or, a sleeper ram every now and then, just anything that comes to your mind. Do you mind doing a little shotgun here with me?
No, that's fine.
Okay, let's talk about Unit 10, Cataract Canyon, 9 and 10.
Yeah, tough. Access is very tough. For the most part, very few sheep. So that could be a really tough hunt. They have killed some decent rams though, and if you can get down into the canyon and stay down there to let you access more of that stuff that you can't see from above, there's a chance that you can kill a decent ram. But the majority of the rams are relatively small.
And those rams move in and out of the Grand Canyon Park, right?
They go into the Supai and the park, yes.
Okay.
Supai Reservation.
Okay, 12A and 12B West.
I don't know anything about it. Never hunted it.
Okay, 12B East.
Never hunted it.
Okay. 13A.
13A south can be extremely tough going into the park. A lot of those sheep move into the park. That's why they've moved that hunt a little bit earlier, I think, to try to catch some of those rams still up on there. It is extremely difficult to access, and very, very low sheep numbers.
Okay, 13B north.
13B north has some good rams in it. Can be a little bit difficult to access, but there's some really good sheep there. Population's not super high, but pretty good population of sheep.
That's the Virgin River Gorge. Okay,
Correct, yes.
13B south.
Don't know anything about it.
15B west.
Used to be one of the best units in the state, but the population is really low. It's starting to come back. All of those 15s, there's been a pneumonia outbreak. Relatively low numbers of sheep now, and relatively small sheep. Even though it's a Nelson, which are typically smaller than the Mexicana on the average, but rams in the 140s, low 150s is the norm there now.
Okay, 15C north and 15C south. Those are all now one tag units.
and mainly because of the pneumonia outbreak, it's going to be tough to find a class 4 ram even in that country.
15D.
I've never hunted 15D. Don't know anything about it, other than there's typically lots of sheep, but they're dealing with the pneumonia outbreak.
16A.
16A, extremely large unit. 4 or 5 different mountain ranges in there. There's the rawhides, the Mojaves, the blacks, or the little blacks. There's another one I can't think of the name of. Sheep are extremely scattered. Can be very difficult. The unit's so big you need to kind of commit to one mountain range, kind of, just because it's so big. You'll spend 3 or 4 hours driving to the other side to go hunt a mountain range. So, if you're going over there, you need to go and stay for a few days. It can be tough to get around just because it's so big and vast, and relatively low number of sheep.
18B.
Don't know anything about it. It's a transplant unit. Fair number of sheep, but not a lot. I think access can be a little bit difficult, but I don't know.
16B.
16B is a very small unit between the highway and the river. I think that's Highway 95.
Yep.
There, Parker and Havasu and that stuff. Typically produces a relatively small sheep, small-based, tight-curled rams. They've killed 1 or 2 rams in the low to mid-60s, but for the most part, a 150 type unit.
Okay, now we're going to get into
also a national refuge in there, which can pose some issues getting it for access also.
Now we're going to get into some of the Mexicana units. Unit 22, I know, is pretty dear to your heart.
Yeah, the Holy Grail,
we all love that unit.
I still think there's some good rams there. Everybody gets kind of tied to the lake. I would definitely look. There was some transplant sheep over in the Matazels. Nobody's ever looked at that stuff over there. There's no telling what could be over there. And I've made the same, when I had hunters there, I never went there because it was easy to go to the lake and easy to see a lot of sheep. But accessing that Matazel stuff, that Lion Mountain, where they transplanted those sheep, there could be a sleeper over there. Don't know. Be worth looking at.
24B Wilderness.
Access is obviously an issue. Very good road structure. It's just going to be a lot of foot walking or livestock if you want to use livestock. I think the potential there for a giant is very good. Very good. Same with 24B North and South, both of those. All those superstition units. There's no telling what could come walking out of that place at any time.
That's for sure. Yep.
Phenomenal.
31-32 Aravaipa.
Traditionally been very, very good. It seems to be coming back a little bit. They've done a fair amount of predation control over there on the lions. It's been good. It's coming back. Quite a few sheep coming in there now.
37A.
Silver Bells has a very high sheep population. A little bit of inbreeding going there because it's kind of an isolated range. The sheep do cross back and forth into the Papago Reservation a little bit, the Tohotum O'odham Reservation, but potential for mid-70s type ram is definitely there. I think they split that season this year.
Yeah, there's
added
two hunts. Yeah, I think there's 2 and 2, first hunt and second hunt
with
two tags in each. 37B.
Transplant herd, the genetics are from 22 and 24B. I think that's going to be an up-and-coming unit. They don't have the water that the lake units do or the river units, but the genetics are there, the genes are there. Give them some time, could produce a giant.
39 East.
Always been a very smaller ram unit, 40s and 50s type rams. Access has become an issue with all that becoming wilderness. A relatively low population of sheep, but I think upper end would be low 160, maybe mid 160 type rams out of there.
39 West.
39 West has some good rams. Access can be an issue. There's some wilderness areas there, but can't be overcome. I've hunted that. We've killed some good rams. Potential there. Biggest ram ever killed in the unit's right at 177. Killed a few years ago. But some good rams. Don't be afraid of it.
40A.
40A, you have some illegal issues, but the potential, and another issue is the military on the gunnery range. Some of that area is live fire stuff, so you're closed off from that. The biggest thing would be the illegal issue, but something that always intrigues you or intrigues me is with the Tohotum Reservation right there, you never know what's going to come off of there. So the potential for a giant is huge.
Yeah, I think we saw that, 2 years ago, and they shot a couple high 170s, 180 type rams.
Yep. Exactly.
40B Gilas.
Gilas have always been a tough unit. It's a big, long spine running South Interstate 8. Extremely rugged mountain range. Access is pretty good. Road structure, there is some military issues, but it's minor. Potential low to mid 60s, I'd say. The sheep population has been increasing there.
40B Mohawks.
Population is, I don't know if the population, the quality has gone down a little bit. A few years ago, 5 to 7 years ago, everybody was killing upper 60s, low 70s type rams. That has kind of gone away now. Upper 50s, low 60s is what they seem to be harvesting the most of. A sleeper deal that needs to be looked at is the coppers, which is in that unit, just a giant boulder pile. And access is a little bit tougher for the majority of it, harder to get into, but I think the potential is there to kill a good ram.
40B Tanaha Altas.
Used to be one of the worst units in the state, and it has come on strong. increasing population. They've killed some really good rams, mid to upper 170s the last couple of years. I think those sheep are pretty nomadic as far as traveling back and forth to Mexico. So it just depends if you can catch them north of the border.
41 East.
41 East used to have a pretty good population. It had a big die-off or whatever. The population crashed. Is coming back. A lot of younger rams. I think right now low to mid 60s is your upper end, unless you can really get lucky and find an older age class ram that has kind of been off the radar there.
41 West.
Never hunted 41 West, but I know they killed a giant there this year with Clay Goldman. I know another guy that hunted it this past year and struggled a little bit finding any big rams. Did see some rams in kind of some off-the-wall places that don't get looked at very often, so that was encouraging. Just another big unit with several different mountain ranges to look at, lots of country to look at.
42.
Don't know anything about it. Never hunted it, never spent any time there.
43A.
43A. You're familiar with that one, being where the auction ram was killed, but that was kind of the exception. Typically, that was a smaller ram unit, but last couple of years they've killed a couple of really nice rams there. So I think that population's increasing a little bit. They do spend some time on the reservation, but it's not a bad unit.
43B.
Really increasing population. What is there, 7 tags there or something?
Well, there's 5 now, but there was 7.
Yeah, lots of country, several different mountain ranges again. Pretty good access all the way through that. Some issues to contend with are the Yuma Proving Ground, which just requires some permits and stuff. Some of the area is locked up from the military that you cannot access vehicular or even walking. So, but they've killed some really good rams there. I think the best ram they killed last year was right at 170. Biggest ram that I know of killed there is 178. So the potential there to kill a giant.
44A East.
Don't know a lot about it. Transplant herd seems to be slowly increasing in numbers. I think access can be an issue. There's some wilderness there also. I know some guys that have seen some good rams, but when they're seeing them is not in December, and I don't know if those rams are there in December. I don't know where they would be going if they're not there, but potential's there to kill a pretty good ram.
Obviously, 44A West, they've shut that hunt down. 44B North.
That was closed.
44B North, the Plomosas.
Yeah, that's always been a good unit, always had a good population of sheep. Probably one of the easiest units to access. Extremely good road structure. Can get around anywhere in that unit with a quad or a side-by-side or even a pickup.
It's like the country club.
Very good population of sheep. Do what?
It's like the country club of desert sheep hunting.
Exactly. Exactly. But quality seems to have gone down a little bit. I think they were harvesting too many rams. I think 4 permits is pretty high there. They were also using that as a transplant base to remove sheep from. But upper 60s, low 70s type rams typically available there.
44B South, New Waters.
New Waters have done, they've come on pretty strong the last couple of years. They killed a really big ram there last year in the 178 range. Good population of sheep. Access, not terrible. There is some wilderness, but for the most part, a pretty good road structure to get around.
45A.
I've never hunted any of the COFAs, never spent any time there. Traditionally, 45A has been the big sheep mecca. Highest population of sheep used to be. That's what they were using as a transplant base for, Aravaipa. The 22 sheep, the 24 sheep all came out of the COFA and the Plomosas both. But big lion issue. They had a big die-off. Definitely coming back. Seems like mid-60s is definitely doable now, maybe a touch better if you hunted hard.
Okay, we've obviously talked about 46A East, 46A West, 46B East, 46B West. Let's talk about Rockies real fast. 1 in 27.
Probably the 1 in 27, that's the Black River. They killed a giant last year, a relatively young ram. That herd got hurt pretty hard with the wallow fire in 2011. Transplanted some sheep out of the Morenci mine, just to the south there. They seem to be doing extremely well. I think the fire helped that unit as far as most of the sheep are in the Black River Canyon itself. The south side of the river, which was the north face, was always very timbered, hard to see into, and now it's opened up a lot of that stuff. It's a lot more visible. I think the sheep will utilize it a lot more, feel safer. They can see a little bit. I think that's going to be a big up-and-comer here in the next few years and probably see some tag increases. And I think that's going to be a good unit coming on.
I'm looking at the measurements of that 190 that they killed last year. 41 and 7/8 and 41 and 5/8 with 16 and 6 bases. That was a giant.
Yeah, and he's only 7 years old.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So, unbelievable.
6A 22 North.
Don't know a whole lot about it. I hope to this year.
You're hoping that's your...
I'll be putting in.
Yeah. Hoping they call Greg Koons' name. I do too. Do you have Max, by the way?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes. So there's only 84 residents with max points, and it's never broken down Rockies to deserts, but there can't be 30, 35 people applying for Rockies. So one of these days.
You got a pretty good shot.
But they've been killing some fantastic rams out of their 182, 183 rams killed last year. I think there's some country that may not be looked at very much, that may harbor some big rams. I think the potential there to kill a really good ram.
For sure. It's nice to see that herd too. Finally, they're killing rams that aren't ear tag rams. They're killing rams that have, born and raised, lived in the unit, born in the unit and died in the unit. 2324A.
That's a real small herd of sheep over there, Black Mesa, right there on the Salt River. Kind of surprised that it's struggling. I mean, that's some fantastic sheep country right there. Those sheep are fairly nomadic. They do go back over to the Tano, around that Gaisila country north of there, Hell's Hole, some of that stuff. I think for ram quality, 160, maybe 170 at the most.
27 North.
27 North is always going to be one of your better sheep units. Country is fantastic. It's hard to access. Little bit of wilderness area in there, but it's just hard to get around into. That was always the core sheep area. There used to be a fantastic population of sheep. It's kind of gone down a little bit now that they've split that unit, or not split the unit, but split the season. I think that's going to help a lot. So you don't have, 5 tags there? Yep. You don't have as many guys on top of each other all at one time. Kind of splits them up a little bit. But, they killed a 187 out of there this year. I think the potential's there. It will always be there to kill a 180 plus Rocky there.
27-28 to finish up our shotgun.
And there again, I think relatively low population of sheep. Access is an issue. A lot of wilderness, hard country to access. But adjacent to that Turkey Creek country in New Mexico, the sheep do go back and forth. You never know what you're going to find. It's going to come walking out of that stuff. I mean, that could be the next state record comes walking out of that. Marvin James killed that ram mid 180s. Richie Hogan killed a mid 180s ram there. The potential there for a giant.
Well, that sums up the units. I really appreciate you spending time with us, sharing your expertise and your knowledge on the whole state as well as the Cabeza Prieta. You're known as Mr. Cabeza Prieta, so I wanted to have you on. I get a lot of people asking about those units, and I thought you were the perfect person to talk about that with. And you've been on a lot of ram harvests in the state of Arizona. What'd you say, 60, 69?
69 rams, yeah.
69 rams, and you've guided in most of the units, and you've taken auction hunters and raffle hunters and all sorts of stuff. It's just incredible to be able to pick your brain about sheep. And I know over the years, I've showed a lot of videos to you to get your opinion, and you're certainly, if I've got a question on a ram, I love getting your opinion, your gut instinct. And that's where I want to finish. People that draw sheep tags, a lot of them maybe not into the animal, but I highly encourage them to dive in with both feet. And how important is gut instinct and having a few people that you can bounce a video or a picture of a ram off of, because they can be so deceiving. How important is that gut instinct to field judging?
I think it's huge.
Sheep?
And having people that have hunted sheep and have a little bit of a sheep experience, I think is huge in helping you with your hunt. A lot of people, everybody wants to go on a sheep hunt, and everybody says, "Oh, I'm gonna go. I'll be there for you," But come December, it's getting close to Christmas. I got to get the Christmas lights up, and it's hard for people to get away when it's not their tag. Their wives have issues with that when it's not their tag, and it's hard to get dependable people, and especially dependable people that have sheep experience. So if you have somebody that you can spend time with scouting, that I think the Sheep Society is a valuable resource that is underutilized. I think the Sheep Clinic is a phenomenal basis for knowledge and information. Highly recommend attending that if you draw a sheep tag. In my opinion, it should be mandatory that you attend that. We need to start harvesting these older age class rams. Let the younger rams do the breeding, get some age on them. We shouldn't be shooting rams in the 120s, 130s. We do that every year, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I understand that. But let the animal grow up, mature, and be a benefit to the herd. And let's harvest the older rams that have been there and done that and don't have much time left on the mountain and are just going to die a slow, lingering death. And their horns would never be recognized. They just wither away out there on the mountain. Where, if they're harvested by a hunter, they're appreciated every day and looked at, and all the memories come back from that hunt. The good times, the bad times, the sore muscles, the struggles. But it's a very, very rewarding time, and it should be used to the best of its ability, or best of your ability, to enjoy that. And people struggle taking off, a week or 2 weeks at a time to go hunt, but they do it for elk hunts and they do it for coos deer hunts, but they can only hunt the weekends when they get a sheep tag, and that just doesn't seem right to me. But it's their tag, it's their hunt, and if that's all they want out of it. But I sure like to see people that get a little more enthusiastic about it and put a lot of effort into it, because you only get to do it once.
That's for sure. And it's amazing how many people kill on the first day. And I think there's a difference between people that kill on the first day that have done a bunch of scouting, they've got their ram picked out, and they harvest their ram. And then there's people that just go down, and all the people that said, "Oh, you drew a sheep tag. Oh, I'll be there to help." I think you bring up a good point. I'm going to say 90% of those people that tell you when you draw in July that they're going to be there for your hunt, they never come scouting and they never come on the hunt, so don't count on them at
Exactly.
all. That's been my
Yep.
experience.
Yep.
And then they get
Exactly.
down there and they're overwhelmed with the country, and they're, by themselves or have one other person with them, and they see the first ram they see, and they feel like, "Oh, we're not going to get one, and Christmas is coming," and a lot of people
Yep.
shoot too early. Um,
Yep. That's for sure. That's for
so,
sure.
well, Greg, it's been awesome having
What?
you on the podcast here. Go ahead.
Once you pull that trigger, you're done.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get to ever take that back or have another opportunity in Arizona to kill a desert unless you're buying the auction tag. Um, so do your homework, do your research, talk to everybody that has ever seen a sheep and get information from them. Be a sponge, gather all the information you can, and enjoy that experience, because it's something that doesn't come around a lot. I know a lot of people that have passed away without ever having the opportunity to hunt sheep, that have spent a lot of time building water holes, guiding other people, but just could never draw a tag for themselves. So enjoy that opportunity. Um, Enjoy it. That's all I
Yeah,
can
for
say.
sure. One last thing that just popped in my mind that you bring up a good point, and that's about when you draw a tag. Obviously, I guide for sheep, you guide for sheep. How important is it to you in your mind that people really consider one hiring a guide, and if they are going to hire a guide, they really do their homework and choose the right guide for them? How important is that in your mind?
Oh, I think it's huge. Uh, if you're, a lot of people wait a lifetime to draw this tag, so we get to be late 50s, 60s, even 70 years old. We physically can't go like we used to. Well, if you hire somebody that's 25 years old, go get a real ambitious. Uh, it don't do them no good to get there and not have their hunter with them. They have to pace themselves to your abilities, and do your homework. Talk to a lot of people. References, if you're looking to hire a guide. It's somebody that you're going to spend a fair amount of time on the side of the mountain with, that's going to share your once in a lifetime experience with you. And some of these guides, they're just there to get a sheep killed and go to the next one. Go get another hunter and go harvest another one. It doesn't matter that you're only shooting a 140 ram or whatever, but a lot of these guides, there's quite a few of the guides that they hunt that tag as if it was their own, and they take it very personal. They put a huge amount of effort into it, do whatever it takes to get you there as the hunter to be able to harvest that ram, and make the overall experience much more enjoyable. So if you're looking to hire a guide, do your research, talk to a lot of people. References are huge. Meet with the people. Don't just talk to them on the phone. Go have lunch with them, and get to know that person a little bit before you decide that's the person I'm going to hire.
Well, I think
So,
that's great advice. Great advice. Greg, it's been awesome having you on here. I want to give you a chance that people can get a hold of you before this draw deadline here coming up, and how they can reach you.
my company name is High Desert Outfitters. Been guiding since 1987. Um, my cell number is 602-540-9446, or my email address is sheephuntsforyou with no U in hunts. So it's SHEEPHNTS, the number 4, the letter U, at AOL.com. So always willing to talk sheep hunting, always have time for it. As Jay knows, because he was always sending me stuff and interrupting
In
work.
the middle of a job.
Nothing else.
I send over a picture and he's like, I'm right in the middle of a job. And then I send him the picture. He's like, hang on, I got a second. Yeah, what is that?
But, willing to talk to you before and after, help you with, units to apply, or once you draw the tag, would love to talk to you about guiding you or just giving you information, even if you're not going to hire an outfitter and you're just looking for information. If I've hunted it, I'll help you however I can. So
that's awesome, buddy. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing with us. I know you've got a busy schedule this weekend of work, and congratulate you on the success you've had, not only in your sheep hunting career and your guiding, but your successful contracting business. And I highly encourage anyone out there that wants to go on a great sheep hunt to give Greg a call, and for sure anybody that is looking for any type of remodeling work or any type of construction work where they need a general contractor. Greg is a phenomenal person and very skilled, and I don't say that about everybody, and I just appreciate you spending time here with us and admire the man that you are, and the things that you do, and how you carry yourself and treat others, and just appreciate that. And yeah, I've been wanting to have you on the podcast for a long time, and I'm glad we're finally able to make it happen.
Yep, I've been a little resistant, but I've enjoyed it, and I'm glad I did it. And thank you for all the kind words, and good luck to everybody in the draw.
All right, buddy. Sounds good. God bless, and take care, okay?
You too. Thank you, Jay.
All right, bye.